How dare you?
I stood in Elena's parents' living
did.
room,
Let
my
go of
hands
me.
locked
I
together,
didn't do anything wrong.
my smile already tired. Margaret looked at me and said, "You should explain yourself." Ryan laughed and said, "Yeah, explain why you're always useless." Tried to speak. I only meant Elena cut me off. "Don't," she said. "You always make things worse."
Ow.
I felt small. Thomas stared at the floor and said nothing. Margaret crossed her arms. "My daughter married beneath her," she said. "Everyone sees it." I swallowed. "I work hard," I said. Ryan leaned forward. "Hard at disappointing her," he said. Elena sighed like I was exhausting. "Why do you embarrass me like this?" she asked. "I didn't do anything," I said. "You exist," she replied. My chest tightened. I looked at her face, searching for the woman I loved. "Elena, please," I said. "We're family." She shook her head. "You're not my family here," she said. "You're a problem?" Margaret nodded. "He is," she said. Ryan smirked. "Do something about it." Elena stepped closer. "Say you're sorry," she said. "For what?" I asked. "For being you," she said. My ears rang. I opened my mouth. The sound never came. Her hand moved fast. The slap landed hard. My head turned. The room went silent. I tasted metal. My cheek burned. I heard my heart. No one rushed to me. Margaret exhaled, relieved. "Good," she said. Ryan laughed softly. Thomas shifted, still silent. Elena stared at me like I had spilled something on her dress. "Now, maybe you'll learn," she said. I touched my face. My fingers shook. "You hit me," I said. My voice sounded far away. "You deserved it," she said. "I would never—" I stopped. I knew it didn't matter. I felt something crack inside me, clean and sharp. "Say something," Ryan said. "Defend yourself." I looked at him and felt empty. "I won't," I said. Elena frowned. "Why are you acting like a victim?" she asked. "Because I am," I said. Margaret scoffed. "Drama," she said. I nodded slowly. "You're right," I said. "This is drama." Elena crossed her arms. "So apologize," she said. I met her eyes. "No," I said. The silence stretched. I realized the slap wasn't anger. It was permission. Permission for them to show me where I stood. Permission for her to tell me I didn't belong. I straightened my back. "I hear you," I said quietly. Elena rolled her eyes. "Good," she said. As I stood there, cheek burning, love draining, I knew this moment would follow me forever. I also knew something else. This was the last time they would see me begging to stay. I took a breath. "We're done here," I said. Margaret raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me?" I said. "I won't be spoken to like this again." Ryan laughed louder. "You think you have a choice?" I looked at Elena. "Say something," he added. She hesitated. "Stop embarrassing me," she said. I replied, "I'm done being your embarrassment." Thomas finally spoke. "Let it go," he said softly. I nodded. "I am," I said. Elena stepped back. "You're overreacting," she said. I answered, "No, I'm finally reacting." My voice felt steady. I picked up my jacket. Margaret scoffed again. "Walk away then," she said. I paused at the door. I turned back once. I said, "This is the last time you touch me." Lena opened her mouth. No words came. I waited. Nothing changed. I left the door closed behind me. My cheeks still burned, but my chest felt clear. I whispered to myself, "Never again." I walked to my car. My hand shook as I opened the door. I said, "You survived." I sat there breathing. My phone buzzed. It was Elena. I didn't answer. I said, "Not today." The engine started. I pulled away slowly. My face hurt. My pride hurt more. I remembered the slap. I remembered the silence. I told myself this is the end. And it was. I drove without music. I said, "I won't disappear tonight." I wiped my cheek. I kept my eyes forward. My voice said, "You matter." I believed it a little. The road stretched ahead. I followed it. Tomorrow could wait. Tonight was enough. I promised myself one thing. I said, I won't beg again. My grip tightened. My tears stayed back. I drove on. That promise felt real. That promise felt final. I didn't know the future yet, but I knew I would never accept that kind of love again. From anyone, ever. I met Alina at a friend's birthday dinner. She smiled and said, "You look lost." I laughed and said, "I am." She said, "Sit with me." That was how it started. Simple. Warm. I believed love meant choosing each other. When we dated, she asked, "You don't mind changing plans, right?" I said, "Of course not." And she said, "My family comes first." I replied, "I understand." I thought marriage meant balance. After we married, small things shifted. She would say, "Just apologize so we can move on," I asked, even if I didn't do anything. She said, "Why does it matter?" So I said sorry. Again and again. When her mother joked, "At least Alina married someone obedient," everyone laughed. I forced a smile. Alina whispered, "Don't be sensitive." I nodded. One night Claire pulled me aside. She said, "Can I be honest?" I said, "Please." She lowered her voice and said, "Her family will never respect you." I laughed it off. "They'll warm up," I said. Claire shook her head. "They don't warm up," she said. "They judge." I ignored her because loving Alina felt easier than facing truth. At family dinners, Ryan would say, "So, still at that job?" I answered yes. Replied, "Must be nice to have low ambition." Alina kicked me under the table. Later she said, "Why do you provoke him?" I asked, "By breathing?" She said, "You make things awkward." I swallowed my anger and said, "I'll try harder." Decisions happened without me. Alina said, "I told my parents we're visiting this weekend." I asked, "Did you ask me?" She said, "I didn't think you'd mind." I always minded. I just never said it. When I tried once, she said, "Why are you being difficult?" I answered, "I'm not." I was lying. I remember saying, "We're a team, right?" She replied, "Don't make this dramatic." I stopped using the word team after that. When I felt hurt, she said, "You're overthinking." When I felt angry, she said, "You're too emotional." Started doubting myself. Maybe I was the problem, Claire texted me once. "Are you okay?" I typed, "Yes." She replied, "You don't sound okay." I didn't answer. I was afraid if I spoke honestly, I would lose Alina. That fear ruled me. I shaped myself smaller to fit her world. The jokes kept coming. Margaret said, "Alina could have done better." Alina laughed and said, "Mom," that was it. No defense. Just a soft protest. I told myself love meant patience. Love meant sacrifice. Love meant silence. There was a night I tried to talk. I said, "I feel invisible." Alina sighed and said, "Why do you always do this at night?" I said, "Because it hurts during the day." She rolled over and said, "We'll talk later." We never did. Later became never. I learned to swallow words before they reached my mouth. At another dinner, Margaret said marriage is about knowing your place. I asked, "Both partners?" She smiled thinly and said, "Some more than others." Alina squeezed my hand under the table, not to support me, but to warn me. Her eyes said, "Don't push." So I didn't. Ryan once raised a glass and said to Alina, for marrying down and still smiling. Laughter filled the room. I waited for Alina to say something. She clinked her glass and said, "Cheers." That sound stayed with me. I joked later. "Guess I'm lucky," she said. "Stop being dramatic." Claire confronted me again. "Why do you let them talk to you like that?" I said, "It's not that bad." She said, "You're lying." I asked, "What should I do?" She answered, "Stand up for yourself." I shook my head. "If I do, I lose her." Claire looked sad and said, "You already are." Even my own voice changed. I started asking permission for everything. "Is it okay if I meet Daniel? Is it okay if I buy this?" Alina said, "Why do you need approval?" I wanted to scream, "Because you trained me to." Instead I said, "Just asking." The love I gave was real. I showed up. I listened. I bent. I believed respect would follow. Respect didn't grow where fear lived. By the time that slap came, it was the loudest sentence in a long conversation. It didn't. I walked out with Alina beside me, neither of us speaking. The car door closed, loud in the quiet. She stared ahead. I asked, "Why did you do that?" She said, "You embarrassed me." I said, "You hit me." She replied, "Don't exaggerate." I laughed once, sharp. I said, "In front of your family." She shrugged. "You made me look weak," she said. I answered, "I didn't say anything." She said, "Your face says enough." I went quiet again. The drive felt endless. At home, she walked ahead of me. She said, "Sleep on the couch," I asked. "Are you serious?" She said, "Don't start." I took my jacket off slowly. I said, "We should talk." She replied, "Not tonight." I said, "When then?" She said, "When you learn." I didn't ask what that meant. I lay on the couch, staring up. The ceiling fan hummed. My cheek still burned. I heard her door close. I whispered, "What just happened?" No one answered. I replayed the slap again. Her face, her eyes, my shame. I asked myself, why didn't I stop it? I answered myself, because I never do. My phone buzzed. Daniel texted, "You alive?" I typed barely. He replied, "Wanna talk?" I hesitated. I typed, "She hit me." 3 dots appeared. He wrote, "That's not okay." I stared at the words. I typed, "It's complicated." He replied, "It's abuse." I swallowed hard. I typed, "I don't know what to do." He wrote, "Are you safe?" I looked toward the bedroom door. I typed physically, "Yes." He replied emotionally.
I waited.
I typed, "No." Daniel sent, "You don't deserve this." I typed, "I must, right?" He replied, "Stop blaming yourself." I said out loud, "I don't know how." I typed the same thing. He wrote, "You sound broken." I stared at the ceiling again. I typed, "I am." Silence filled the room. I felt anger rise. I felt fear louder. I thought, if I stay, this gets worse. That thought scared me. I thought, if I leave, I lose everything. That scared me too. I realized something slowly. Staying scared me more. I rolled onto my side. I saw my ring glint. I touched it. I remembered promises. I remembered laughter. I remembered apologies. Mostly mine. I asked myself, when did this become normal? My phone buzzed again. Daniel wrote, "Come crash here if you want." I typed, "Not tonight." He replied, "I'm here." I typed, "Thank you." Typed, "Thank you, I listened to the house." I felt like a guest. I felt like a stranger. I said quietly, "This isn't home." The words felt heavy. The truth felt heavier. I slid the ring off. I held it tight. I expected love. I felt pain. I stared at the metal. I said, "This shouldn't hurt this much." I lay back again. Sleep didn't come. I thought about leaving. I thought about staying. One felt like death. The other felt worse. I closed my eyes. I whispered, "I can't live like this." The ceiling said nothing. The ring burned in my palm. I understood then. I wasn't afraid of being alone. I was afraid of staying invisible. I opened my hand. The ring felt cold. I set it on the table. I said, "Something has to change." I checked the time. It was past midnight. I heard Elena turn over. I wondered if she slept easily. I wondered if she felt anything. My phone buzzed again. Daniel wrote, "Don't minimize this." I typed, "I've been doing that for years." He replied, "That's why it keeps happening." I typed, "I know." Seeing it written hurt. I sat up slowly. My body felt heavy. My mind wouldn't stop. I said softly, "Why wasn't I enough?" The room didn't answer. I remembered her words. "You embarrassed me," they echoed. I said I didn't raise my voice. I said I didn't insult anyone. I said I only existed. That felt like my crime. I imagined tomorrow morning. Awkward silence. Forced normal. Another apology from me. I felt sick. I said, I can't keep doing this. Daniel sent, "You matter, man." I stared at that sentence. I typed, "I don't feel like it," he replied. "Feelings lie sometimes." I thought about that. I stood and paced. The floor creaked. I froze, listening. No movement. I exhaled slowly. I picked up the ring again. I remembered saying vows. I remembered meaning them. I asked myself, did she ever mean hers? That question hurt most. I sat back down. I texted Daniel, "If I stay, I disappear," he replied. "Then don't stay." I stared at the words. They felt simple. They felt impossible. I placed the ring back down, not on my finger, just on the table. I said, "I don't know who I am anymore." The house stayed quiet. My heart didn't. I realized something clear. I was more afraid of staying than leaving. That truth scared me, but it also steadied me. I lay back once more. I didn't sleep. I just breathed. I waited for morning. I waited for courage. I looked at the ring one last time. I felt nothing warm, only pain. I whispered, "This shouldn't hurt anymore," but it did. I closed my eyes again. I stayed still. The couch felt foreign. So did my life. I slept like a stranger, and I knew nothing would ever feel the same. I didn't belong here anymore.
No.
And that truth finally stopped terrifying me completely. I woke up before Alina. She said, "Why are you up so early?" I replied, "Couldn't sleep." She said, "Try harder." I nodded and made coffee. She scrolled on her phone and said, "Don't be weird today." I asked, "What does that mean?" She said, "Just be normal." I decided something then. Not loudly, not bravely, just clearly. I stopped trying to be heard. I stopped explaining myself. I chose silence over screaming. At dinner, she said, "You're quiet," I replied. "Long day." She said, "Okay." No follow-up. No concern. That told me everything. Days passed like that. I smiled. I answered. I stayed calm. Inside, I was packing myself away. I stopped sharing thoughts. I stopped asking questions. I started watching instead. One night she said, "You forgot to take out the trash?" I said, "I'll do it now." She replied, "Why do you always sound guilty?" I said, "Habit." She laughed and said, "Figures." I opened a new savings account during lunch. The teller said, "Planning something?" I smiled and said, "Just being careful." That felt honest. I met Mr. Howard after work. He said, "You need a room?" I said, "Yes." He asked, "Short term or long?" I said, "I don't know yet." I nodded. "No questions," he said. I liked him instantly. He showed me the room. Small, clean, quiet. He said, "You pay weekly?" I asked. "Any rules?" He smiled. "Respect," he said. I said, "That works." At home, Alina said, "Why are you late?" I replied, "Extra work." She said, "You should tell me these things?" I asked, "Do you want to know?" She shrugged. "Just don't disappear," she said. I almost laughed. I started hiding cash in my bag. Small amounts. Enough to matter later. I told myself, slow and steady. I told myself, don't rush. Guilt visited me at night. It said, "You're giving up." Fear answered, "You're saving yourself." Love whispered, "Stay." Pain replied, "Leave." Alina noticed the distance. She said, "You don't look at me anymore." I said, "I'm tired." She replied, "From what?" I said, "Everything." She rolled her eyes. "Drama," she said. I practiced being neutral. No anger, no pleading. Just quiet agreement. It felt strange. It felt strong. Mr. Howard called and said, "Room's ready," I said. "Thank you," he said. "You sound relieved," I replied. "I am." That night, Alina said, "We should visit my parents," I said. "You go?" She asked why. I said, "You'll enjoy it more." She paused. "Fine," she said. When she left, I sat alone. The silence didn't scare me. It calmed me. I realized I wasn't plotting revenge. I wasn't angry enough for that. I was planning survival. I packed slowly. Only essentials. No memories. I left photos behind. I kept myself. My phone buzzed. Daniel texted, "How are you?" I typed, "Quiet." He replied, "That's new." I typed, "Necessary." I felt love still. That hurt. I felt fear still. That passed. I felt something else growing. Resolve. Before sleeping, I opened my notes. I typed one line. I read it twice. My hands didn't shake. One day soon, I will be gone. I left while Alina was gone. No note. No warning. Just absence. I carried my bags quietly. The door closed behind me without a sound. I said to myself, this is it. The house didn't answer. I didn't look back. Mr. Howard opened the door and said, "You're early," I replied. "Couldn't wait." He nodded and said, "Smart." A handed me the key. "Room's yours," he said. I said, "Thank you." That was all. The first night felt strange. Not lonely light. I slept without fear of footsteps. I woke without dread. At work, Daniel asked, "Did you do it?" I said, "I left." He stared. "That's big," he said. I replied, "It's quiet." He smiled. "Quiet can heal," he said. I worked harder. I stayed late. I focused. My boss said, "You seem different?" I asked. "Better or worse?" He said, "Clearer." I liked that word, Daniel texted one evening. "She's losing it," he wrote. I asked how. He said, "Angry. Telling people you ran." I stared at my phone. I typed, "Not surprised." He replied, "She's not sad." That hurt more than anger. He added, "She says you abandoned her." I laughed once. I typed, "She never noticed me leaving emotionally." Daniel wrote, "I know." I put the phone down. Sophia noticed me staying late. She said, "You okay?" I replied, "Working." She smiled. "You always answer honestly," she said. I said, "I try," she said. "That's rare." We talked over coffee. She said, "You don't interrupt." I replied, "I was trained not to." She raised an eyebrow. "That sounds sad," she said. I shrugged. "It was," I said. She never asked for details. She never pushed. That felt like respect. I hadn't felt that in years. Daniel called one night. "You hear what's happening?" I said no. He said, "Her family's fighting." I stayed silent. He added, "Money problems too." I said, "I'm not celebrating." He replied, "I know." Alina texted me once. "Where are you?" I didn't answer. Another message came. "You can't do this?" I still didn't answer. Silence felt stronger than any argument. Daniel told me more. She showed up late to work. She cried in public. She blamed you. Each sentence landed softly, not sharp, distant. I felt two things. Satisfaction, then nothing. I waited for joy. It didn't come. "Only quiet understanding," Sophia said one day. "You smile more now," I replied. "I breathe easier." She nodded. "That makes sense," she said. "I saved money." I planned. I grew steadier. My hands stopped shaking. My thoughts slowed. Daniel asked, "Do you miss her?" I said, "I miss who I thought she was." He replied, "That's normal," I said. "Is it?" He answered, "It's human." Another text from Elena came. "You owe me an explanation," I whispered. "No, I didn't type it. I lived it." Daniel said, "She's embarrassed." I replied, "She should be." I paused. Then added, "I don't wish her pain." He said, "You're kinder than she was." Sophia asked, "Want to walk?" I said, "Sure." He walked without fixing anything. That mattered. I heard Alina argued with her mother. That Ryan mocked her now. That her image cracked. I felt no urge to watch it fall. I told myself this isn't revenge. It felt true. I wasn't pulling strings. I wasn't speaking. I was just gone at night. I sat quietly. I thought about the slap. It felt far away. Like a story I survived. Daniel texted, "Karma's working." I typed softly. He replied, That's the best kind. I realized something important. I didn't need her to hurt. I needed myself to heal. I looked around my small room. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I said aloud, "This is enough." It whispered, and I finally listened. She texted me after 3 months of silence. "Can we talk?" I stared at the screen. I typed, "About what?" She replied, "Us." I waited. Then I typed, "One conversation." She answered, "Thank you." We met at Pastor James's office. Neutral ground. That was my idea. She arrived late. I was already seated. She said, "You look different." I replied, "I am." She sat down slowly. Her hands shook. Pastor James said, "I'm here to listen." I nodded. Alina avoided my eyes. She said, "I was angry," replied. "I know," she said. "You disappeared," answered. I left. She flinched. She said, "You didn't explain." I explained for years. Her voice rose. "You embarrassed me," she said. I stayed calm. "I embarrassed you by existing," I said. She looked away. She took a breath. "I lost control," she said. I asked, "Of what?" She said, "Of you." The words landed heavy. Pastor James shifted but stayed silent. Alina said, "You used to listen," I replied. "I still do," she said. "You used to apologize." I said I stopped. She swallowed. "That hurt," she said. I nodded. "It hurt me too," I said. She leaned forward. "My life fell apart," she said. I replied, "I heard." She said, "My family blames me." I answered, "They should." She looked up sharply. "You're cruel now," she said. I shook my head. "No," I said. "I'm honest," she said. "I didn't mean to hurt you." I replied, "You meant to control me." She whispered, "I was scared." I said, "So was I." She asked, "Why didn't you fight for us?" I answered, "I was the only one fighting." Pastor James finally spoke. "Do you hear each other?" Alina nodded quickly. "Yes," she said. I paused. "Too late," I said. She reached for my hand. I moved it back. She said, "Please." I replied, "Don't." Her eyes filled. "You don't love me anymore," she said. I answered, "I love myself now." She cried then, soft at first, then hard. "I didn't think you'd leave," she said. I replied, "That was the problem." She looked broken. "I need you," she said. I said, "You need control." She shook her head. "I need safety," she said. I replied, "So did I," she whispered. "Can we try again?" The room felt still. Pastor James watched quietly. I took a breath. "No," I said. Her shoulders collapsed. She asked, "Is there nothing I can do?" I replied, "You can let me go," she sobbed. "I'm sorry," she said. I believed her. That surprised me. I said, "Your apology matters." She looked up. "But it doesn't change the ending," I added. She nodded slowly. "I understand," she said. Her voice broke again. Pastor James said, "This is closure." Alina laughed weakly. "It doesn't feel like it," she said. I replied, "It rarely does." She wiped her face. "I miss you," she said. I answered, "I miss who I was." She whispered, "I ruined that." I said, "You helped me rebuild." Stood. She hesitated. Then said goodbye. I replied, "Goodbye." Outside. The air felt final. Outside, the air felt lighter. I didn't feel victorious. I felt done. Behind me, I heard her cry again. I didn't turn around. I walked to my car calmly. My hands were steady. My heart wasn't racing. I realized something important. Closure isn't loud. It doesn't cheer. It just lets you breathe. I drove away slowly. No anger, no regret. Just truth. She finally saw me, and it was too late. I started therapy because I said, "I don't want to disappear again," the therapist asked. "From who?" I replied, "From myself." She nodded and said, "That's a good place to start." She asked, "Why did you stay so long?" I said, "Because leaving felt like failure." She replied, What does leaving feel like now? I thought and said, like honesty. At work, Sophia noticed changes. She said, "You speak up now," I answered. "I practice."
Oh.
"It shows," she said. "We ate lunch together." She said, "You don't rush anymore." I replied, "I'm not afraid of silence." She said, "Silence can be strong." I nodded. "I learned that late," I said. "In therapy," I said, "I apologize for existing." The therapist asked, "What would you say now?" I answered, "I deserve space." She said, "Say it again." I did. I started setting boundaries. Daniel asked, "Want to help this weekend?" I said, "No." He blinked, then smiled. "Good," he said. Sophia asked, "Are you seeing anyone?" I replied, "I'm seeing myself." She laughed softly. "That's healthy," she said. I thought about masculinity often. I used to think strength meant endurance. Now I thought strength meant choice. I said out loud once, "I'm allowed to leave pain." The words felt new. Daniel told me, "People are talking." I asked about what. He said, "Alina." I stayed quiet. "She's being blamed," he added. I said, "I'm not involved." He nodded. "That's growth," he said. Sophia and I walked after work. She said, "You don't flinch anymore," I asked. "From what?" She replied, "From kindness." I stopped walking. "That was visible?" I asked. She said, "Very." In therapy, I admitted, I thought silence meant peace. The therapist said, "Silence without choice is erasure." I said, "I erased myself." She replied, "And now?" I said, "I'm writing again." Forgave myself slowly. For staying. For believing. For hoping. I said, "I did my best with what I knew." That sentence loosened something inside me, Sophia said one day. "You don't need fixing," I replied. "Thank you for not trying," she said. "You're doing fine," I believed her. Daniel asked, "Do you hate her?" I said, "No." He looked surprised. "I hate who I was with her," I added. He said, "That's honest." I heard Elena's image collapsed. Friends distanced. Her family blamed her. I felt nothing sharp, just distance. I told myself, this isn't my story anymore. In therapy, I said, leaving felt like weakness. The therapist replied, "What does it feel like now?" I smiled. "Courage," I said. Sophia said, "You walk differently." I asked how. She answered, "Like you own your steps." That mattered. I practiced saying no. I practiced resting. I practiced listening to myself. The world didn't end. That surprised me, Daniel said. "You're lighter," I replied. I dropped what wasn't mine. One evening, Sophia said, "I respect you." I asked, "For what?" She said, "For choosing yourself." I felt seen without shrinking. I stood alone one night and said, "I'm not broken." The words stayed. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need apology. I needed myself back. And I finally was. I became a man who leaves when love hurts. A man who stays when love listens. A man who knows silence is only powerful when chosen. Alina asked for one last conversation. She wrote, "Please, I need to say this." I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed, "One meeting." "That's it," she replied. "Thank you." I whispered, "This is for me." We met in a quiet cafe. She arrived early this time. That alone said something. She stood when she saw me. "I'm sorry," she said immediately. I sat down and said, "Sit." She obeyed. "That was new," she said. "I've practiced this." I replied, "Say it anyway." She took a breath. "I slapped you," she said. "Yes," I replied. "I humiliated you," she continued. "Yes," I said again. "I disrespected you for years," she said. I stayed silent. She looked at me and said, "I was wrong." I nodded slowly. She added, "There's no excuse." That mattered. "I didn't protect you," she said. "I used you," she said. "I controlled you," she said. Her voice shook. "I'm ashamed," she finished. I said, "I believe you." She looked relieved and terrified at the same time. She asked, "Does that mean you forgive me?" I paused. "Yes," I said. Her shoulders dropped. "But," I added, "forgiveness doesn't mean return." She flinched. She whispered. "I was hoping," I replied. "I know." "What?" she said. "I've changed," I answered. "So have I." She reached for my hand. I pulled back gently. She nodded, understanding, without liking it. She said I lost everything. I replied, "You lost control." She winced. "That's true," she said. "I miss you," she added. I answered, "I miss myself." She started crying again. "I see it now," she said. "See what?" I asked. "How small you made yourself," she replied. I nodded. "That's why I can't go back," I said. Someone cleared their throat nearby. Linda stood there. Alina stiffened. "I asked her to come," Alina said quietly. Linda looked at me and said, "I hope that's okay," said. "It is." Linda sat and said, "I owe you something," Alina whispered. Linda held up her hand. "No," she said. "Let me speak." She looked at me. "You deserved better," she said. I felt my chest tighten. She added, "I should have said it sooner." I said, "Thank you." She nodded. "That's all," she said, and stood. Alina wiped her face. "She always liked you," she said. I replied, "I know." She laughed sadly. "I ruined that too," she said. I didn't argue, she asked. "Does the slap still haunt you?" I thought for a moment. "No," I said. "It taught me something," she asked. "What?" I answered, "that love without respect is just pain." She looked down. "I don't deserve another chance," she said. I replied, "You deserve growth," she asked. "Without me?" I nodded. "Yes." She stood slowly. "So this is goodbye," she said. I replied, "It is." She hesitated, then said, "I'm truly sorry." I met her eyes. "I know," I said. She left first. I stayed seated. I felt heavy, then lighter. Both at once, I remembered the slap, the sound, the silence, the shame. It felt distant now, like a scar I no longer bled from. I stood and paid. Outside, the air felt clean. I breathed deeply. No anger followed me. No longing chased me. I walked away without looking back. Not because I was strong, but because I was free. I woke up early and said, "This is my life now." The room answered with quiet. "I liked that," Daniel called and said, "How do you feel?" I replied, "Clear." He said, "That's new." I answered, "It's earned." Sophia met me for coffee. She asked, "Any regrets?" I said, "Only that I waited." She nodded. "Waiting teaches," she said. I smiled. "It did," I said. I didn't check my phone anymore. No messages from Alina came. That felt right. I had kept my promise. I was gone. I walked through my day slowly. I noticed small things. Sunlight, laughter, breath. I said to myself, "You're safe," Daniel texted. "She stopped asking about you." I typed. "Good," he replied. "You really vanished," I answered. That was the point. I thought about pain often, not with anger. With respect, it shaped me. "It didn't own me," Sophia said. "You seem peaceful." I replied, "I don't fight myself anymore." She smiled. "That's rare," she said. I sat alone one evening. No noise, no fear. I thought about the slap. It felt like a closed chapter. I said, "You don't control me." I heard Alina moved on. I didn't ask how. I didn't need details. Karma had finished speaking. Daniel asked, "Do you feel like you won?" I replied, "I left." He said, "That's better." I agreed. I opened my old notes. I saw the line I wrote, "One day soon, I will be gone." I whispered, "I kept that promise." Sophia asked, "What do you want now?" I said, "Peace." She said, "That's enough." I nodded. I walked home under quiet skies. "No, wait," followed me. No voice pulled me back. I belonged to myself. I understood something then. Dignity isn't loud. It doesn't argue. It walks away and lives well. I stood still and breathed. I smiled without forcing it. I said, "This is my future." The scar remained, but it didn't bleed. It reminded me, never again. I closed my door gently. I turned off the light. I rested. I didn't disappear from the world. I disappeared from her control. And that was freedom.